I'm going to be getting into what each rising sign can expect and the best way to use this upcoming Saturn retrograde in Pisces, which is going to be between June 17th and November 4th. And this is basically a time where with the retrograde, it's a good time to be reflecting on Saturnian themes. And out of all of the planets that go retrograde, in my personal opinion, I think that Saturn is the best planet to go into retrograde because the natural energy and how Saturn interacts is a very reminiscent flavor to the influence that retrograde have on planets. Retrograde is a time when the energy of the planet slows down, so it's not in full power. And it does this so that, like, rather than like moving forward in energy, there's value and benefits in reflecting back, reevaluating, recognizing what works, what doesn't, and to take corrective measures. This is something that's really important, and it's something in this highly stimulating world that we don't do. And Saturn, by design, being such a slow-moving planet, just works really well with that retrograde energy. And the best way to use this placement is we've had Saturn in Pisces for a while. So with any retrograde, you want to repeat the themes that are associated with that. And so it's ideal before we go into the Saturn goes into retrograde in about a week. This is a good time to kind of start things related to Saturn being in Pisces if you haven't already. And if you want to learn more about that, please check out my video where I go into lots of detail. It's a really long video where I talk about how you can use your Capricorn and Pisces placement, because those are the signs that are ruled by Pisces, and how you can take advantage of this energy on a personal and collective level, and how you can manifest in different ways. But in this video, I want to talk about specifically the different themes that can show up. So these are going to be related to Saturn. So we're talking about hard work, discipline, responsibility, restriction, blocks, barriers, protection, karmic wisdom, blocking of things, developing mastery, discipline, all of these Saturnian sort of themes. And it's going to basically, how it's going to show up is going to vary depending on the house that Pisces is in. So starting with Pisces rising, this is where you're going to have Saturn in your first house. And your first house is about you, your physical energy, the best way for you to navigate your life, and the environment that helps you to get started. So with this Saturn placement, with retrograde, it's not really a time to start new things, but if you want to return or revisit, going back to specifically a discipline, something that's really responsible and beneficial for you, something of high integrity, doing something that is going to ultimately be professionally beneficial, that's going to offer some sort of mastery, is going to be something that is really good for you. And this is a really good time to be disciplined with your physical body, your work environment, your spiritual body, and you want to work with things that are in integrity. Wherever Saturn is in your chart, this is not the fuck around, find out energy. Like Saturn is very strict and disciplinarian, so it either rewards or punishes. So this is an area where like you don't want to push the envelope too much. And with any retrograde, wherever there's issues, it can be frustrating, but it's also really helpful because the areas where you're having challenges, it's telling you specifically, this is the area that you need to work on. So it's not like you're sitting here trying to like go in blind, hoping that the efforts that you have will be beneficial. Like you'll know this is the area that you need to work on, and by working on this area, you're going to see improvements. So that's really beautiful. And so you want to take care of your physical body, you want to sleep, you want to be disciplined with your fitness. If you want to go swimming, for example, this is a great way to exercise, and it works with that sort of like Piscean energy. You can work through any sensitivities that you might have, particularly things that that's difficult for you to get motivated and get started with, themes related to your job. If you have any like unhealed traumas around your father, this is a great time because Saturn rules father, and it's about work and your role as a leadership. Like if you're trying to like take action as a leader, because Pisces by design is a little bit more passive, if this is an area where you want to develop more of like an authority and an assertiveness, this is something that you can explore. Like, you know, why have I not taken action? What are some corrective methods that I can do? What kind of discipline can I practice that'll allow me to approach myself in a way that's more beneficial for me? These are things that are going to be really beneficial, and this is a good time to restrict poisons because Saturn is a restrictive energy. It's also very responsible. Pisces rules addictions, drugs, alcohol, things of that nature. So this is a time where specifically when you have Saturn in your first house, whether it's retrograding or just when you have a transit there, or even in like your sixth house, this is a really good time to be really disciplined and healthy with your physical body. And I have a friend who has this placement, and he just naturally has just been finding himself being like, you know, I kind of gave up drinking. I just feel so much better. I've just been more productive. And so that's that energy that you really want to work with. This is also a great time to get back into a spiritual practice, particularly if you wake up early and you can turn your birth chart into an astrological clock where each zodiac sign is representative of a 2-hour increment. So between the hours of 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., you're going to be in the hours of Pisces. So this can be a great time to practice meditating and being disciplined about this art. It's something that can be really beneficial. And Pisces rising is one of the most difficult incarnations because you're ruled by a sign that's the most vulnerable. It's also the wisest, and it embodies all of the zodiac signs. But because there is this deeper spiritual responsibility and wisdom that not every incarnated soul has actually developed into, like our rising sign is determined by the zodiac sign that was on the eastern horizon at the exact time of our birth based on our location and all of these considerations. And so with the way the earth rotates, the zodiac sign is like, each zodiac sign is in a specific placement of the rising sign for about 2 hours. But Pisces is the one where there's less than 2 hours because it can be a really difficult incarnation. So if someone was, for example, supposed to be an Aries rising and something happened and their birth time, something happened and they were born in a Pisces rising placement, then they're going to have a lot of difficulties. So this is a placement where there's a lot of wisdom here. So if you're finding some challenges and stuff, this is a great way to make corrections, experience success within yourself. You can look to your Capricorn and your Aquarius placement, which is about your 11th house of friends, 12th house, which is about spiritual support. So you can look to these areas, people that you trust, your friends. 11th house can also be cousins and older siblings. The 12th house is about spiritual support that's potentially hidden from you, any wisdom, karmic lessons that you can learn about. This is a great time, including maybe you're going to be interested in exploring past lives regression, specifically related to your father, if this is something that you've done before. And even if it's something that you haven't necessarily done, I think it's important to remember because there's this generalization that's very one-dimensional and where you're recommended to not do anything new. And that's not helpful or even like realistic some of the time. It's not so much that you're not supposed to try anything new, it's that this is a really good time to reflect because that allows us to identify what works and what doesn't. And so the more we're reflecting and the less we're moving forward, the more we can kind of look back. And so if you do something new that you haven't done before, but it gives you an opportunity to deepen your connection with Saturnian themes, this can be a good time to start new things. So don't be worried about that. Just really kind of feel into what really does and doesn't work for you. Now, if you have Pisces in your second house, you're an Aquarius rising. And so having Saturn in your second house, there's an interesting theme here because your second house is about your resources. And according to ancient astrology, this can also mean your family. Whereas in modern astrology, this is about it's in your fourth house. But it represents your family because they're basically resources and things that support you in your physical body because the second house sits right below your first house. So there can be themes specifically to correct with your resources. This can be family, especially your father. This can be any relationship and beliefs that you're hanging on to around authority figures. This can be your finances, your relationship with food. All these second house themes can very much come up. And in particular, if it's related to your family, this can be a correction. Practicing forgiveness can be really beneficial. If you have any low self-esteem or beliefs that have been holding you back as a leader, this is something that you can work through, because your second house is about things that you hang on to. And so what are you hanging on to that is blocking you, Saturn, from healing, which is Pisces? This is something that you can correct. What are the karmic lessons here? Are there any chronic fears associated to money that's important for you to work through? Now, this could also be about valuing and practicing boundaries. This is something that's often not considered, I feel like, when it comes to the second house. But as a Pisces myself and being an empath, I recognize that because the second house is about things that you value and the things that support you. When you have wherever you have Pisces in your chart, unless you have other indicators that change this energy, which can very much be a thing, because this is a general reading, I'm not looking specifically at your unique chart, but wherever Pisces or Neptune is in your chart, this is where you're dissolving boundaries, because that's the energy of Pisces. So when you dissolve boundaries and stuff like that, this can be an area of a vulnerability. And so this can be that, like, being an empath, being compassionate, being psychic, being vulnerable is something that you value. I know someone who's in Aquarius rising, Pisces sun and moon, and he very much values his compassion and all of these beautiful qualities. But when you have that, it can also leave you vulnerable and at risk for things. So with this Saturn retrograding in Pisces, this is a great time to practice boundaries and create corrective measures, because there are benefits that can still come from your compassion, but it can also be something that kind of drains you. What can you do to correct those things? This is also a great time to be more responsible with your finances, whether it's how you manage your finances, or you may find that the money that you're earning is kind of being decreased. Just in general, I recommend that when you have Pisces, the sign of confusion, in your second house, it's good to automate things. Like, you're not going to be as super aware of how much money you have in your account and stuff like that, and that's okay. You don't have to. And actually, one of the best ways for Pisces in the second house people to make money is by leaning into trust. Wherever Pisces is in your chart, it's a good time. It's a good place to trust, to allow spirituality and the invisible world to support you. And Pisces sort of has that innocence of a child and his rose-colored glasses and just trusts and believes. So that belief that money is going to show up in stuff, and that lack of detail to a degree can actually be what helps you to bring money in, because your second house is the modern ruler it's Neptune, which is a higher octave of Venus, which is about your financial fluctuations. So the more you lean into trust, the more you're going to be able to have a better relationship with your finances, just in general. But with having Saturn and Pisces here, even though there are benefits to that, there are also drawbacks when you're kind of oblivious and ignorant about what's going on with your finances. So this could be a really good time to be strategic, automate things, be responsible. If you haven't opened up a Roth IRA account, or, this isn't investment advice, but, a lot of Pisces in the second house people don't do some of the more dry, responsible things with finances. And if that's you, this is a great time to really focus on those things. And as far as what I mentioned in regards to also practicing boundaries as an empath, this is something that I think is so important. And if you want some guidance on that, I do have a personalized reading called You're a Badass Energy Bitch, which is designed specifically for strong Pisces, rising sun, moon, stelliums. Or if you're an empath and you have a difficulty with boundaries, this is a reading where I specifically explain where your challenges are, why you have those challenges, what's the most effective way to create boundaries, how to recruit support from other people, what are the karmic lessons there, how you can redirect that energy, and just providing you with the tools that help you to most effectively and successfully get the boundaries that you want. Because oftentimes people are using methods that don't work for you, and that's why you're not getting the results that you want. If you're one of my coaching clients, then you're probably already familiar with the coaching version that I created, but this is specifically for a personalized reading, and I see it through an astrological lens. I am going to put a course together, but that's in the works right now. Now, if you have Pisces in your third house, you're a Capricorn rising, and this is a good time to work on things both emotionally and professionally. Let me just take a look at Capricorn rising chart so that I can better navigate this for you. And this is basically a really good time to essentially correct any vulnerability and chronic fears you have around communicating and things like that. And this is because when I say emotionally, it's because Pisces is a water sign. It's very emotional, very sensitized, and it's in your third house of early childhood experiences, your communication, your marketing, self-made wealth, professional collaborations. And being Capricorn ruled, this retrograde is ruling you as a person, and it's a very worky vibe here. And so this is a time where connecting to your early childhood experiences and how it's affected the way that you collaborate, communicate with other people can really help you on an emotional level as well as on a professional level. And oftentimes what I've noticed is when you have Pisces in your third house, because you're represented by a fish who can't speak, there's sometimes sort of like this fear of communicating and stuff. And because Capricorn is ruled by a planet that's very punishing and it's about maturity and stuff like that, it depends on every individual, obviously, but I've seen some cases where people had a more difficult upbringing as a child because rather than being able to be a child, they might have felt this sense of maturity, which made them feel isolated from their peers, or they experienced success later in life. And so if you've had some of these pains in your early childhood, this is a great time to explore that, see what are some things that you can work through in your childhood. And this can be really beneficial because it could really help you to influence the marketing that you do. And as you express yourself, you'll be able to express yourself from more of a healed space. And this can also be a time where you become more strategic in your marketing and your collaboration. When you have Pisces, the sign of spirituality, in your third house of your self-made wealth, one of the ways that you can become professionally successful in making your own wealth could be through charity organizations, could be through a healing industry. Maybe you invest in spiritual retreats and have a business around it. It shows up in a lot of different ways. And you have this beautiful sign here, but it's also the sign of confusion. And so having Saturn here can really stabilize that, create more strategy and structure. This can be something that's really beautiful, especially if you are in a spiritual healing industry, because spirituality and healing is ruled by Pisces, which is by design confusing and ambivalent. So oftentimes I come across healers that are I really don't know how to market myself. And part of that is because what you do is in the sign of confusion. And now is an excellent time. And this is for anyone, Pisces sun, Pisces rising, Pisces moon, wherever you have Pisces in your chart. If you're in a Piscean field, you can use this Saturnian energy that's very much about structuring, strategizing, stabilizing. It's very clarifying, very distinct. This is a time to get some of those details that you've been looking for, that if you felt you haven't really been connecting with it, this is a time where you can really take advantage of that. And you have the planet of success right now, which rules you in your third house of communication, marketing and stuff. So this is something that's really beneficial, especially if you also have your own business, because when you have your self-made wealth in a sign like Pisces, which is, it kind of does its own thing. And then you have Taurus, which is the sign that rules finances, in your fifth house of starting your own business. And you have Jupiter here right now. This is really an excellent time to achieve financial wealth through your own business. And if this is something that you want some more guidance on, I just started doing a collab with the founder of Neptunian Sea. She is a triple Virgo and a remedy specialist, and we've created a Mercury retrograde webinar in the past, but I also, every time I do a collab, I offer specifically new services and I channel the energy of the space that I'm in and the people that I'm collaborating with. And so one of the things that I'm creating is called What the Fuck is Your Marketing Signature? And I basically break down this is for established entrepreneurs, the best way for you to market yourself, the best way to communicate, in what platform, in what medium, what's the archetype of your clients, what's the communication style, the tone, your marketing frequency, should you delegate, should you be a public speaker? And some people might have a lot of fear and pain around that it seems so far-fetched, but there may be specific traumas to work through, and the best way to work through that. These are all things that I provide. And so this is basically going to be very precise to your chart. So rather than hiring a marketing strategist or an expert who could be very successful at what they do, but it might not work best for you energetically, what's sustainable for you, what works with your chart, this is a reading that you can do to get exact insights on what works best for you. Before I was an astrologer, I was a coach. Before that, I was in the marketing and promo industry. I've been a copywriter. So this is an area that I have familiarity in. So if you want to know more about that, I'll leave my website below and you can definitely book a reading with me. Now, if you have Pisces in your 4th house, you're a Sagittarius rising. And this means that Jupiter rules you, and the Saturn retrograde is also ruled by Jupiter as well. And then on top of that, Jupiter is in your 6th house of problems. So there can be some like working energy to sort of work through. And what you want to do is, it's important to remember that every energy has positive and negative manifestations, and it's really a matter of using the energy that's going to be most beneficial for you. So use the positive manifestations, the optimistic qualities of Jupiter that sees things from a different perspective to work through this energy during this retrograde. Really explore what work, discipline, and commitment do you need to heal. What are some things that you might have learned from your family, your roots that have sort of that are best for you to let go of, that might show up in your day-to-day habit, your work environment, and how it influences how you navigate yourself in the world. Are there any chronic fears related to your home and family for you to work on? Are there ways that you are habitually kind of like like keeping that narrative alive? Because wherever Jupiter is in your chart, the energy expands. And being in the energy of Taurus, wherever Taurus is in your chart, the energy moves the slowest. So when it's in the 6th house, this can actually show an expansion of problems, but it can also show wisdom about your habits, your health, and what you need to learn so that you can make changes that are going to ultimately support you. It's really about how you use that energy. So think about, are there any childhood traumas for you to let go of? And another thing to consider is Saturn rules your 2nd and your 3rd house, which if you turn your chart, this is because Capricorn is in your 2nd house and Aquarius is in your 3rd house, but from the placement of Pisces being in your 4th house, the Saturn ruled signs are 11 and 12 houses away from you. And so Capricorn is in your 2nd house and it's 11 houses away from Pisces. And so this is really to tell you that like your 2nd house is what supports you, and your 11th house is about your friends, your benefactors and stuff. And then materially, your 2nd house is about your finances and your 11th house is about your financial gains. So this could be something for you to work on. Like, how do you feel? Like, what are your emotional needs, your foundational needs? What makes you feel at home? What beliefs about these finances and support that you may have and beliefs you may have inherited from your family needs to be corrected? Or this doesn't even have to be something that you need to like correct, but maybe there's a wisdom for you to go back to. Maybe there's some financial information that people have helped you. Particularly the 4th house is about home. So if you are like in real estate, for example, this can be something that you can kind of reflect on as well. And really take the time to explore what supports you. And in ancient astrology, this is your family, which is your 2nd house. But in modern astrology, this is about your 4th house, where Saturn is retrograding. So this is going to be a time where you can talk to supportive friends, maybe find some support from online resources, maybe one-on-one. This can be a time where you can explore your emotional relationship with money. What are some disciplines and practices and beliefs that you can incorporate that are going to be ultimately supportive for you? And take the time to explore if this relates to your mother or your father. There's a debate in the astrological community about between the 4th and 10th house, which house represents the mother and the father. Either way, the 4th and 10th house are the parent access. Essentially, the 4th house is home to Cancer, regardless of the signs that you have here. And Cancer being ruled by the moon and representing motherhood, this is why astrologers attribute the 4th house belonging to the mother and the 10th house belonging to the father, specifically because the 10th house is home to Capricorn. It's ruled by Saturn, which is the disciplinarian, strict father figure, while the moon is more the maternal, nurturing love that a parent showers their kids with. So there's that belief. And then the other belief is that the 10th house is representative of the mother because it represents the 10th house is about prominence. So it represents the mother because the mother is oftentimes more prominent and the father is the less significant parent. Now, personally, there's issues with both of these. Like there's a lot of like antiquated, like archaic idea that it's like the father is the 10th house because it's about public success. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. It really does depend. And so take a look at your chart. I've personally, as an astrologer, seen it work both ways depending on the chart. I have a friend who has this placement, and having Virgo in her 10th house, her mother is very much a Virgo archetype. Like she is in a technology industry where she literally makes corrections and reviews to make sure that changes and things that have been made for spaceships that are about to like launch are basically everything is like working properly, and she is like observing all of that. Like she has a very critical eye. She's there to make improvements and corrections. That's very Virgo in nature. Whereas like her father is representative of Pisces. There's like some addiction challenges and things of that nature. My chart, it's very flipped. So I would also say particularly for Sag risings, because you're ruled by Jupiter, which in ancient astrology also rules the father, you can also take a look at your Jupiter placement as well. And since Jupiter is in your 6th house, like you can look at, okay, what are some challenges that I have going on here? You know, things of that nature that you can kind of explore at the start of this retrograde. And think of like any karmic wisdom that you might need to learn about in relation to your boss, because Saturn is also about your boss as well. And so that's definitely something to be looking at. Now, if you have Pisces in your 5th house, you're a Scorpio rising. And so I've seen this can show up in 2 different ways when it comes to romance. So like, for example, this can show up as Saturn blocking romantic dating and love interests and things of that nature. And if that's you, a better way to work with this energy is to focus on work and your business, because that's what Saturn is about. And really take the time to use your creative intelligence, because Saturn rules your 5th house. And this is especially great if you have your own business, because having your own business with Pisces here, you want to use your creative intelligence. You want to offer something that's a little unique and different and whatnot. And this is going to be something that's really well supported. Or you can actually find commitment in your romantic partnerships. You might get engaged, you might have kids, and through marriage, through partnership, you can actually increase financial gains through marriage, because the 7th house is about your marriage partners, where you have Jupiter there. So these are just some of the ways that it can manifest. Now, you also want to take a look at, it's called turning the chart, where basically your 1st house is about you, right? But your like as an entrepreneur, your own business, not a business that you're in where you're an employee, that's your 10th house, but your own business that you created, as an entrepreneur. That's your 5th house. If you turn the chart, so you reposition your chart, so your 5th house is now on the left side, which is like positioned as though it's in your 1st house. If you do that, now you have the chart of your business. And by doing this, this repositions Capricorn and Aquarius into your 11th and 12th house. So 11th house is about financial gains, benefactors. This can be grant funding, things of that nature. And your 12th house is hidden support. It's about spirituality and generosity. And so I personally relate angel investors here. And this is like just my personal take and twist on it. Different astrologers have different ideas when it comes to investments. I know an astrology teacher who says that investments is your 2nd house because it's something that you're doing with your money. Whereas some astrologers say it's your 8th house because and it depends, you know, if you have business partners and stuff, then the financial gains you get from them is very much about your 8th house, because the 8th house is second from the 7th, which is about your business partners. But also anyone and anything that's not you is represented by the 7th house. And the 2nd house is about their resources, such as their finances. So it can very much be the 8th house, or financial gains is your 11th house as well. But the thing is, when it comes to angel investors, the 12th house rules angels. It's a really generous planet, and it's the opposite of a Virgo, which is by the book. It's very mercurial, and it's angel investors are basically wealthy people who have money and they want to use that money to invest in other businesses, but it's not like an established organization. Like for those of you guys who live in Los Angeles, there's a nonprofit organization called PACE, which offers funding to Asian American business owners for grants and stuff. That's not how it is with angel investors. And so I feel like that ambiguity and like that information, there's not usually, as far as I know, a list of just angel investors. I'm sure it's there, but it's not as readily available. And so to me, this is very 12th house energy. So tapping into that to see who do I know that can really support me is really beneficial, particularly because you have Libra in your 12th house, which is one-on-one business partners. So if you know people that you've met during your travels, spiritual retreats, or someone who's a little not traditionally Virgo, for example, this can be someone that provides you with some hidden financial support and funding because it's ruled by Venus, which is also about finances. So it's kind of a hidden way to look at it, but it's also something that you can look as well. So I'm kind of layering the different combinations here together. Now, if you have Pisces in your 6th house, you're a Libra rising, and with this Saturn retrograde, there's going to be a heavy work theme going on because Libra is about one-on-one partnerships, and it's the sign that rules you. And Pisces is going to be retrograding in your house of your ideal work environment and just your work circumstances. And so this can be a time for you to explore how can you change your habits and work environment, which is also inclusive of your health practices that'll bring you more harmony to you and your physical body. This can also be a time where you can ask yourself, how can you automate and restructure practices both in your personal and work, in your personal life, as well as in your work habits to your benefit. This can be a great time to detox your lymphatic system. And honestly, this is something that anyone can do regardless of where Pisces is in your chart, because we have Saturn that's going to be in Pisces for a while. It's going into retrograde. Saturn is about blocks, and Pisces is about your immune system, and it's about your lymphatic system. So there can be this block when it comes to effectively detoxing our body. But it's also, you can redirect this energy. Saturn is about discipline and it rewards hard work. So this can be a great time to practice lymphatic massages, which are really easy to do. I hear so many people say that they can't work on their health because of financial challenges, and that's genuinely a real thing. But healing, some of the best healing resources that we have available is out in nature. Nature doesn't charge things. That's a consumerism thing that humans do. So there's a lot of free healing resources that exist. Pisces is healing, and Pisces is not material. It's not about financial gains. So it's a great time to, like, no matter what your financial situation is, whatever your health issue is, everyone can do a lymphatic massage. It's free, it's gentle, and that's what makes it effective, but you have to do it regularly. This is a great time to do that. If you want to learn more about this, I do have a collab coming up with the medical astrologer who has a medical background, you guys. I'm super excited. So keep an eye out for that. We're going to be talking about so many things, including we're going to be talking specifically about immune health, the importance of detox, and a bunch of other stuff, as well as upcoming transits that you can follow. And so this video is going to be so amazing. I'm super looking forward to it. Now, some other things that you can take a look at is also, what are some things that you might be hanging on to when it comes to your traumas? Or what are some wisdom and healing that you can do around your traumas? And I say this because Saturn is retrograding in Pisces. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter, the planet of wisdom and healing, is in your 8th house of traumas with Taurus there. And Taurus is about things that you hang on to. So take the time to look at, is there anything that you are habitually doing that might be hanging on, where you might be hanging on to your traumas? Or is there something habitually you can do to release your traumas? What can you heal? What can you let go of? And when you think about traumas, this is also related to your 8th house. I'm sorry, Scorpio. We're already talking about the 8th house. And Scorpio is in your 2nd house of the things that you hang on to. So there's very much this connection going on. So this is a great time to kind of think about, okay, what are some things that I can let go of, things of that nature. And this is also a time where you can look at, like, basically what blocks, karmic lessons, and wisdom is here for you. And the other thing is, you can look at this from a financial perspective. And your 2nd house is about, like, you can ask yourself, what financial habits and discipline can support you? This is especially beneficial for investors and entrepreneurs, especially if you have clients, because your 8th house is your clients' resources. So you can be looking at, how can you attract more money and make it work for you? And think about the habits that you can do in your business, in your day-to-day activity, that can generate this kind of outcome. You also want to take a look at your 5th house, because your 5th house is ruled by Aquarius. So you can take a look at, like, ways you can engage in your creative intelligence and ways that you can innovate in order to experience success in your health, in your habits, in your work environment, and just how you navigate your life. Because there's very much this theme going on here in your chart. Now, if you have Pisces in your 7th house, you're a Virgo rising. Now, in this case, Saturn is opposing your rising sign, which is actually a good thing. Because here's one of my pet peeves is, I'm really not a fan of, like, the generalization that positive aspects are blue and negative aspects are red. The aspects are the relationships that the planets have to one another and how they manifest. And it's very oversimplified. And the thing is, some planets, they do better being in a challenging placement. And this is very much the case with Virgo and Mercury and Saturn, because Saturn it rewards hard work. You want to be disciplined. You want to be consistent. You want to be repetitive. And Virgo is very much about making corrections. It's about making improvements. And it's ruled by Mercury, which likes to redo things over and over and over. And so when you have when you have Saturn opposing you in that sort of a way, it's like it gives you an opportunity to keep practicing, keep correcting, which is literally the journey of Virgo. And oftentimes, because Virgo is very corrective, when it's in your rising sign, you can be really critical. You're naturally critical, and you can be particularly critical about you and your physical body, because that's the area that Virgo is ruling. And so making corrections, being disciplined is something that can be really supportive for you. And one of the best ways to stop criticizing yourself is to actually get rid of the reason why you need to be criticized. It's not that you're trying to be cruel with yourself. It's like your thoughts that keep telling you that what you're doing is wrong or you need to have corrections. It's a strict teacher that's trying to make a correction, which is literally the energy of Saturn. And not only is Saturn opposing you, which is really beneficial because it kind of like feeds off of each other to want to be repetitive and to be able to master something and to make improvements, but whatever sign you have in your 7th house, any planets that are there, this is energy that's considered to be opposing you because it's opposite of you, but this is also your shadow quality. So these are things that you want to integrate with. And so this can be wisdom, success, business that you're meant to integrate with in a very Piscean sort of a way because of your placement here. This could also be that like if you're very much a super like strict Virgo person and you're constantly in your head and you're torturing yourself, or you are just a little too on the earthy side, you want to integrate more of the spirituality that Pisces offers because we're spiritual beings here to have a human experience. Pisces and Virgo are on the healing axis. Virgo heals in a very practical, measurable way. Pisces heals in more of an esoteric, etheric, invisible way. So really strong Pisces might be like, I don't want to integrate with the Pisces healing. Like it's not tangible enough. But there's a lot of energy that goes into that. So if you've had spiritual practices in the past, going back to it is really beneficial and becoming consistent in it. You can also, for example, this can be something that if you haven't done it before, exploring spiritual practices that have ancient wisdom and are very traditional in nature can be something that can be a good way to explore sort of the benefits of this combination. And this is also this is just a really great time to do that. This energy can manifest in a lot of different ways. The collaborator I was telling you about with Neptunian C, when like right now with Saturn being in Pisces, interestingly enough, Saturn is about work and it's in her 7th house of business collaborators with Pisces. I'm a Pisces. She literally listed me just recently on her website as one of her collaborators, so that's something that's a way that the energy can manifest. And so with the planets retrograding, we've previously created a Mercury retrograde webinar that you're welcome to check out. But this can also be a time that we redo another webinar. So by the way, Martina, I did want to ask you actually if you wanted to do another webinar together, and also if you want to do a video on my YouTube channel. So, and since I'm like asking this publicly with everyone, a lot of you guys I don't know about a lot of you guys, but some of you guys have met me through Neptunian C. So if you have any specific topics that you want me or Martina to talk about, please let us know. I mean, I should probably make sure that this is something she wants to do, but I'm pretty sure you do. We've talked about different things that like future webinar ideas we've discussed that we want to do. So this can be a great time to do this. So if you have this placement, this can be a time that like maybe go back to your like business partners and maybe redo something, maybe relaunch something. If you have clients, former clients, this can be a time that you reconnect with them. This can be like just a lovely way to use this energy. Now, if you have Pisces in your 8th house, you're a Leo rising and Saturn is going to be retrograding in your house of traumas. Now, some of the best way to use this energy is to take a very corrective approach to Piscean themes, such as your immune system and your lymphatic health. So this is the time to really work on correcting root issues with this immune system, and as a result, you can work through family traumas as well as your past lives. And this is because in your 4th house of your family and your roots, you have Scorpio here, which is home to the 8th house. Even though you natally have Pisces here. And let me just pull up my friend's chart. I'm not very good at multitasking right now, so I want to just stop and do this here. Okay, so the thing that's really interesting with this placement is Saturn is very karmic in nature. And so having this karmic placement in the most karmic sign and stuff in your house, in your 8th house of traumas, and Scorpio ruling your 4th house. Your 4th house is about your family. It's also about your roots and where you come from, including your previous incarnations. So this tells a story that more than likely you've probably experienced some trauma in your family. There's a lineage and theme of traumas there, including your past lives. And so by making corrections, you can really work through some of the challenges. I have a friend who's a doctor, and she's like really discovered the correlation between the toxins in our bodies and how the correlation with ADHD that's showing up. So she's been doing a lot of really effective detoxing with measurable results. And so this is like a really good way to work through that energy as well. And again, I have the collab coming up with the medical astrologer where we're going to be talking about this detail as well. And so this is just like a really good way to do that. If you've been wanting to detox your traumas, this is a really great time to do it because Saturn is a very protective energy and it creates boundaries. So if you've been feeling sensitized before, this can be a time where you're going to be able to really take advantage of this energy and feel basically a little bit more protected and not so vulnerable and raw necessarily. Now, the personal observation I've made with this is that it kind of depends on the relationship that you have with Capricorn, which is in your 6th house of your day-to-day habits, and how you interact with that energy. Because Capricorn is about success, it's about leadership, it's about delegating, all of these beautiful things, but it's also ruled by Saturn, which is a karmic planet. And if you are working yourself in a way that's depleting you and you're having these chronic challenges and stuff like that, and you're experiencing a plethora of traumas, then this can show up a little bit differently for you. And because Saturn is about chronic themes and chronic fears, this can sometimes potentially show up as like you might feel this like loop or this pattern of chronic fears and a deep sense of being victimized when it comes to your traumas. And if this happens, this is a really great time to look at, okay, how can I change my habits to have a different narrative? I recently cut someone really important out of my life because I realized that the way that she responds to conflict and trauma is really harmful. It makes sense that when we are feeling traumatized, and especially when you have Pisces or Neptune in your 8th house and you feel really vulnerable, or it doesn't even have to be that, it can be any placement really, but when you feel threatened and you feel really like vulnerable to that, there's oftentimes people either internalize that pain or they become very defensive and aggressive and hostile. And that can lead to kind of like violent, abusive reactions. Obviously, I'm not saying that this is you if you have this. I'm just talking about in general how people respond to trauma, and it's a coping mechanism to protect ourselves. And oftentimes, like there's a narrative that we hang on to because it gives us a sense of emotional control, because when you let that go, you have to sit with the feeling of uncertainty, and that uncertainty can be extremely traumatizing, especially when you have Pisces, the sign of confusion and vulnerability, in your 8th house. So this could be a time where Saturn could create sort of a little bit more of that like stability and safety for you while you explore certain uncertainties. Like if you are someone who has experienced trauma, this can be a time to maybe explore why are you experiencing, it doesn't excuse anyone who has abused you or mistreated you, but I'm talking specifically for people who have felt like victimized and stuff like that, whether it's true or not. Are you re-traumatizing yourself? Because during this Saturn retrograde, if you constantly are ruminating about past experiences, whether it's perceived and imaginary or absolutely legitimate, if you are constantly reliving that experience and you're re-traumatizing yourself, that's harmful to you. What are some habitual practices you can do to protect yourself? What are some things that you can do to change the narrative? This is something that you can very much kind of work on and learn to find ways to let go and heal, whether it's practicing forgiveness, spirituality, meditation, massage therapy. There's a lot of different things that you can use, but really take the time to explore what this can look like. And if you've had experiences in the past where you know what does work for you, try to find a way to get back to that. That's going to be really valuable. Now, if you have Pisces in your 9th house, you're a Cancer rising. This is my placement. Right now is a great time to consistently engage with your spirituality. This is a really good placement because Pisces dissolves boundaries, and when it's in the 9th house of spirituality, there isn't this barrier. So like oftentimes, like I feel very supported by the spiritual world, and this can be a really beautiful time. And this can also, similar to what I mentioned, this can be a time where you basically take the time to explore what does and doesn't work for you. Like if you have a history with practicing spirituality, get back to those practices right now. Meditating every day is great. And also, again, going back to rewatching the video that I created on the best way to use Saturn in Pisces. The video is called Saturn in Pisces is Karmic Faded Promises or something like that. And so it tells you the best way to sort of use this idea, and I give recommendations that you can definitely apply. Something that I've been doing is you can turn, like I said, you can turn your birth chart into a clock. And if you want to have a generalized reading on the best way to do that for you, I do have a service. So go on my website, grab that copy. In the hours of Pisces, for me, I set my alarm because thankfully my schedule allows for it. And I practice meditating. I've been using the Expand app. They have a free version. It's been studied extensively by Monroe Institute, and I've found the video, like the music, to be a lot more effective. So this is something that I do for a short period of time. Saturn, wherever Saturn is in your chart, you want to use the energy a little bit every day, both natally and in transit. So this is a way that you can use that. This is also a great time to work on your higher education. You might feel inclined to commit to getting your master's degree at this point, or travel internationally for work. Now, if you're finding that you want to travel and during the retrograde and you're having blockages, complications, delays, a remedy could be to try to travel for work, or if there's something where you can incorporate work in your travels. So it's not just all fun and games, but like maybe you work on something related to your business. It doesn't mean that you have to necessarily work with your boss, but give some attention to that. Maybe study spirituality in the process, things of that nature. Visit ancient lands that are spiritual in nature. That might make it easier because then you're using the same energy that's creating that block. It's all about redirecting this. And because the 9th house is about higher education and teachers, one way that you can look at this is, like, for example, if you're trying to figure out, oh, I wonder if I should get a new teacher or should I show up as the teacher? For example, for me, I can reference my solar return chart. Another thing is you can look at your annual perfections. Your solar return chart is when your sun moves back to the exact same placement at the exact time of your birth. And so this year, I'm a Sagittarius rising. Sagittarius rules teachers and astrologers. So this is the time for me, rather than learning from astrology teachers, to actually be hard and to work hard and be disciplined and share my knowledge with people as an astrologer to my students. This is the energy that works best for me. Now, the other thing that you can take a look at is your annual perfections. This is when every year, at every age, you're ruled by a specific house. And the planet that rules that house, you want to give special attention to the placements that are specifically going on. And so for me, for example, I didn't really think too much about it because right now I have my annual perfection in my 4th house. And that's ruled by my moon for me, and the moon, or I'm sorry, that's not true. I have, that's where my moon natally is, but it's ruled by Venus. And Venus is very much has a theme of finances. So, and it also rules my 11th house of financial gains. So for me, there's this theme of like, be a teacher, be an astrologer, achieve financial gains through doing this, rather than furthering and continuing my education, which was like in my I think it was like a year before that, where my solar return was I was in a Virgo rising. So that's something that you can reference to kind of see if you're a little uncertain about what you should or shouldn't be doing. And you can do this with any of your, like, this isn't just for Cancer risings that have Pisces in your 9th house. It's something that you can use for any of them. This can also be a time that you can work on exploring any potential father issues you have, because Saturn is about the father, and the 9th house being ruled by Jupiter in ancient astrology is about the father. So this can be a time where you take a look at are there any spiritual lessons that you can learn from your father? And also take a look, because like for me, the 10th house rules my father. And so if you're a Cancer rising and you find that you resonate with the 10th house representing your father, the malefic planet Mars rules your father. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a negative relationship with your father, but growing up in my youth, I did have a more challenging relationship with my father. Now, I personally have my son in my 9th house, and the 9th house in ancient astrology is the father. Your son is what you grow into. So what I found is that as I grew into myself, as I healed, as I really honored my sun sign in my profession, which is what Cancers are about, and I became like successful in it. After going through becoming an astrologer, a coach, and even when I was doing marketing and promos and trade shows and stuff, I had international clients. When it came to marketing, it was global marketing stuff, and I really grew into myself. And then there was this healing that took place, and my relationship with my father has very much changed and evolved. And he used to be really aggressive and confrontational and just like really problematic, but now he's a lot gentler and kinder and very permissive, and he lets things go, and he's very generous. Like, this is the energy that he's kind of evolved into. So sometimes this is an energy that you can work. This is something that naturally just kind of happened to me, but this is something you can take advantage of during this transit, because the 10th house is about the father, right? And the 12th house from Aries, which is your father, it's or even if it's your mother, but like that's Pisces. So your 12th house is about your psychological downfalls, but it's also about healing and what you can let go of. So having Saturn here, you can be like things related to your father, or if your 10th house is representative of your mother, what are some corrections, Saturn, that you can do? How can you practice forgiveness or wisdom? Is there any spiritual insights that you can do to heal, to let go of things? This is something that you can work through, especially with having like the malefic planet ruling you here. Again, it doesn't mean that Mars is bad in your chart and stuff. Like my Mars is in rulership, it's in high integrity, all of that great stuff. But this is really to say that you can really take a look at some karmic lessons and hidden wisdom here for you to master. And this doesn't just have to be about a parent. This can be related to your relationship with authority figures and bosses, or even you showing up as a boss. What are some vulnerabilities that you have? And how can you make corrections? How can you show up as a leader? How can you work through that? What are some problematic beliefs or vulnerabilities to let go of? And so this is a great way to really use this energy here. You can also read books on how to deal with difficult bosses. Like maybe a book that's filled with wisdom can be something that's really helpful. Now, if you have Pisces in your 10th house, this Saturn retrograde is going to be specifically for Gemini risings. And this one, there's very much this strong working theme here, because you're spiritually motivated. Like your drive for your professional endeavors is being fueled by Saturn being in your 10th house of your work, environment and your work, and you as a leader, and the ruler and this retrograde is being ruled by Jupiter, which is in your 12th house of your subconscious, hidden motivation, the things that motivate your rising sign, and the things for you to take action. And right now we also have Mercury here as well, which is your chart ruler. So you've got all of this energy. Gemini is about self-made wealth. Right now we have your sun here, although that's going to be moving soon. But before it does move, Saturn transits into Cancer, it will have a little bit of that energy going on in Gemini still near the end of it. And so this is just like a great time to work behind the scenes as a leader in your job. I would say budget for any potential hidden expenses that come up as well, because you do have Jupiter transiting in your 12th house of expenditures and its hidden information. And so that's something to work on. And if this isn't professionally related, another way that this could potentially manifest is to process any subconscious fears that you may have toward a romantic partner, because your 7th house is also ruled by Jupiter with Sagittarius there. And this may be related to stuff going on with your dad, because Saturn is about the dad, it's in Pisces, which is about the dad, and the 10th house, which is about the dad. So it's all of these things. So this can be something that you decide to explore, go to therapy, do some work on. This is something that one of my friends, she kind of just started doing. So as the retrograde happens, she can dive deeper into these themes. You can also explore any boundary issues that you have as a leader and the relationship that you have with your clients. Again, because Saturn is about boundaries in Pisces, which dissolves boundaries, you as a leader, how you show up, and Jupiter ruling Pisces and this retrograde and Jupiter ruling your 7th house of clients, this can be something that you're experiencing. I know someone who recently told me that like she needs to work on her boundaries, and she's just like she did something for a client that made her feel really loved and she was so grateful, but this person just kind of did some stuff that was just like, she was operating basically out of her people pleasing, and it was just soul crushing for her. So if you tend to do that, where you're very permissive as a leader, and you have this public reputation of that, and people really appreciate that, especially your clients, but you want to create boundaries around that to also prioritize what's best for you, this can be a great time to explore what are some corrective measures that you can take to change that, to create boundaries. And so this is something that you can do by processing your trauma, because Saturn rules your 8th house of traumas here. So this is something that you can very much do, and I highly encourage it. Now, if you have Pisces in your 11th house, you're a Taurus rising, and Saturn is going to be retrograding in your house of financial gains. And what's really beautiful about all of this is Pisces, let me pull this chart just so that I have the visual reference, which is going to be easier for me. But there's very much this relationship with your rising sign, your Venus, the Saturn retrograde is ruled by is in Jupiter, so it's ruled by Pisces and Neptune. Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces, and Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, and Venus is what's ruling your rising sign. So while Venus is about money, Neptune is about financial fluctuations. So there's literally this energy right now because Jupiter, the traditional ruler of Pisces, is in your rising sign. This is literally telling you that financial gains is coming to you. So this is something that's really great. Where is that chart? I just want to look at a visual reference. It'll just make it so much easier for me. There it is. And so this is really to say that with this placement, hard work is going to help you to achieve your financial gains. and it can fluctuate your finances and stuff to really benefit you, especially if you are operating as a friendly, collaborative leader. This is really great. 11th house themes can also very much support you, such as your followers and your friends and stuff like that. And this is especially when it comes to financial gains. This is going to be beneficial for people in a Venusian industry such as beauty, music, and business, because Taurus is about your finances, it's about beauty, it's about music. Gemini, in your second house of how you attract finances, is also the sign that represents self-made wealth. It's about natural talents and stuff. So, like, for example, a hairstylist uses your hands and like the skills that you have with your hands, right? And this is also the same thing with musicians. If you're doing music, and if you are in a business, your writing skills, your sales skills, this can be an area where you achieve financial gains in this area of your life. And not to mention Venus, the lower octave of Pisces, which is where your Saturn is retrograding, also rules your 6th house of your ideal work environment, where you have Libra, which is also about beauty, music, business, one-on-one partnerships, things of that nature. So it's a great way to kind of work with this energy here. So this is a time where you might want to ask yourself, well, what are some strategic ways that you can automate and simplify how to increase your financial gains? So there's a lot of information here. Really take the time to mull it over. Saturn retrograde is a great time to really explore slowly, carefully, mindfully. What are the wisdom? What's something to master? Don't feel overwhelmed. The energy of Saturn, even though it is a really punishing planet, and it's something that I think a lot of astrologers emphasize, myself included, something that's important to remember is that Saturn isn't a greedy planet like Jupiter. So you don't have to put that much time and effort. Even if you just put a little bit of energy, we're talking like 10, 15 minutes a day, you are feeding that Saturn as long as you do it consistently. And so I would say take the time to look at what time of day it's easiest for you to do that, what's most sustainable for you. Maybe do it when you're in the hours of Pisces, maybe do it in your 6th house of habits. Whatever it looks like, you want to try to attach it with something, ideally if you can, with something that you're already doing. If it's something that's kind of like been difficult for you to implement. But there's a lot of different ways that you can very much use this energy. I've given you tons of recommendation here. I highly recommend that you take notes and really take the time to reflect on how you want to use this energy. And also, if you want to get started a week before, a great way to use this Saturn energy is to promote knowledge. So we have a week before Saturn goes into retrograde. Watch my video on Saturn in Pisces is karmic fated promises. Look at the different ways you can use that energy and start doing that a little bit before the retrograde, and pick something that you want to build upon during the retrograde. And this way you're feeding that Saturnian energy, and you're going to experience a lot of these beautiful karmic rewards, because Saturn rules Capricorn, which is an earth sign, which is fated, and it rules Aquarius, which is an air sign, that's free will. And so you've got this balance, and it's in Pisces, which is literally, it's a fated sign. And so you've got these 3 energies that are in order, that are working with you. So you can take the power and the success that Capricorn delivers, and you can innovate it in Aquarius in a way that promotes healing, and Pisces is a sign that embodies everything. So it's a really beautiful way to really use this energy. And I hope that you have a very beautiful Saturn retrograde. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.